This is KC Sports Tonight.
And there we are. Welcome, everybody. KC Sports Tonight, the 5:30 streaming edition on the KCTV5 app, kctv5.com. We're on Facebook. We're on YouTube. Pretty much your favorite streaming platform. Scott Reiss, Marleah Campbell in the blue and red boxes this afternoon. On an interesting day in sports, we get Royals baseball going on as we speak. We get Chiefs OTAs in progress, but no availability today or tomorrow. We got to wait for Thursday to hear from the guys. But Marleah, we did get some interesting Chiefs-related news today that I think is worth discussing. Steve Spagnuolo, the outstanding longtime Chiefs defensive coordinator, honored with the prestigious Dr. Z Award, which comes from the Pro Football Writers of America, and it is given to coordinators for lifetime achievement in the NFL. And since Spags is the only coordinator, offensive or defensive, ever to win Super Bowls with two different teams, I would say he qualifies. So congrats to Spags.
Yeah, well-deserved, not just on the body of work over the course of his entire career, but you look at these last couple seasons. I mean, you have an offense with Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce, and the defense has been the most reliable kind of staple of this team, at least over the past two seasons. So, pretty impressive what he's been able to do over the course of his career, impressive what he's been able to do these last couple of years. And certainly we wouldn't be talking about 3 Super Bowls in 5 years if it were not for Spags himself.
How many coordinators do you think have custom T-shirts made about them over the course of a season? Because you think back to the playoffs,
yeah,
right?
I'm going to go
the
one.
In Spags We Trust,
yeah.
The Justin Reed production. That was so cool. And I remember seeing that in Baltimore, seeing the guys all wearing them before the game. And then they went out and just played the game of their lives. And it was the game plan of the season, honestly, the way they shut down Lamar Jackson and company to vault back to the Super Bowl. So, it's again, we are used to it because we talk about it here all the time, but I still don't know that the nation understands just how important Spags and that defense were to what happened last year, because like you alluded to, you think Chiefs, you think Mahomes, you think Kelce, you think offense, but last year it was defense first.
Yeah, remember the offense had struggles earlier in the season, and they had a couple games where they just, Harrison Butker scored all their points, and was it this?
Which is not ideal, by the way.
Yeah, not great. So yeah, I mean, it's just been incredible what they've been able to do. When you were talking about the Ravens game, I'm just having like slow-mo flashbacks to that L'Jarius Sneed line or play at the goal line.
Yeah.
Which I think when we look back at this season and 20 years, we'll think about the Super Bowl highlights, but that play got that team to the Super Bowl. That doesn't happen. We're not talking about a Kansas City Chiefs Super Bowl this
If
season.
you were to list the most important singular plays of last season, regular season or postseason, it's up there.
Top
I mean,
three.
Obviously the Hardman catch to win the Super Bowl is probably
Yeah.
number one because it
Mahomes
won the
fourth and
Super
one
Bowl.
In the Super Bowl,
But
that's probably two.
Right, but I mean, it's certainly top 5, top 3. So LJ, we miss you.
Yeah. On that note, yeah.
But he gave us what we needed. And anyway, so congrats to Spags. Super cool honor for him, for sure. Other interesting news. Let me plug the. Hang on one sec. We'll plug this up here. Kansas State signed another player from the transfer portal. His name is Ugonna Onyenso, shot blocker from Kentucky, a Nigerian-born forward/center. He's a really, really good defensive player, shot blocker. You see 3 a game, 3 blocks a game, 5 rebounds a game, only played about 18 minutes. Limited offensively to this point, but still a very important piece, I think, for Jerome Tang. But the bigger picture here, Marleah, is that's seven transfer portal additions for K-State.
Yeah.
And on the surface, you say, wow. But then you think about it, and you're like, well, it's the world in which we live. Is nowadays, it's the circle of life in college sports, right? Guys leave, guys come. Transfer portal makes it super simple. NIL gives them incentive, and here we are.
It's wild. I mean, it's changed so much in such a short amount of time. I mean, you and I were talking about, I graduated from Wyoming in 2018, and I played 4 years there, so I was in the Mountain West Conference, Division I, and back in my day, we didn't have the transfer portal rules. There was such an incentive to stay because if you transferred, you would have sit out for an entire season, barring the grad transfer rule came into the mix somewhere when I was playing. But outside of that, I mean, sitting an entire year is enough of a punishment.
That's a disincentive to look
keep you
elsewhere.
from
Yes.
but, I mean, you're not going to play live. I mean, you could practice, obviously, but you're not going to play a game for an entire year. Like, that's hard to reconcile in your mind. So flipping the switch now, I mean, it's a 360 to where if you would have told me 7 years ago that K-State had 7 transfers, I would have been like, how is that even possible? But you hear that now, and I'm like, yeah, that sounds about right for, a Power 5 school that's had, a number of guys leaving and a number of guys going to the NBA, testing draft waters, coming back, going to different schools. I mean, it's unsurprising these days, which is wild when you think about how quickly that changed.
Now, that said, I hope Kansas State does not become one of those schools that does this every single year. I still believe in the value in building a program. And obviously, in this day and age, the transfer portal is an incredibly important part of that. You have to make use of it. I don't care who you are. But I think there are certain schools that even going back 4, 5, 6 years before all this craziness, Memphis comes to mind. And by the way, Arthur Kaluma looks like Memphis is a strong lead for him, reports yesterday. So he may follow Naquan Tomlin, who does not have any more eligibility, but another Kansas State to Memphis transfer from last year. But Arizona State is a program that seemed like had 6, 7 transfers every year. There are just some programs that is the way coaches choose to build. And if it's me, I'm spending equal time on the portal and on the high schools trying to bring in guys who are committed to my program and might actually stay 1, 2, 3, 4 years, heaven forbid nowadays, because I do think there's a lot of value in that. I'm curious to get your take as someone who, again, was 4 years at Wyoming, and I'm guessing most of your teammates were 4 years at Wyoming.
Yeah.
And, how do you see the, I don't want to say disruption, but the inevitable learning curve every single year when you've got a roster of 13 scholarship players and half or more are new every single season?
Well, there's a lot to dive into there. To your first point, I think I can think of 1 or 2 players in my entire tenure who transferred, and I want to say they both went to Division II, maybe one to JUCO. So like a Division I hopping wasn't really a thing. And then I break it down into 2 points. One comes to the basketball point of things, which the transition from high school basketball to college basketball is like learning a different language. I mean, it's just like in high school, everyone's the best at what they do kind of naturally. Like you're the best on your team. You're probably the best on the court, if not close to that every single night with really relying on your work ethic and your natural athleticism and, that kind of thing. When you get to college, we're watching film for in slow-mo, you took one step in the wrong direction, rewind, what decision should you make next time? And it's like, oh my God, I didn't even think about that. Right. It's learning a lot. And then offensive systems, I mean, your playbook, quadruples, if not quintuples. I mean, it just gets a lot more complicated. So having to learn, and each school has such a niche offensive system, defensive system. Do you run a zone? Do you run press? Do you run man-to-man? So having to learn that over and over every year is complicated on its own. Then you get into team chemistry with playing with different guys. By the end of our years, my 4 years, we all kind of knew how we played as players. That all goes out the window. Secondly, I think about some of my best friends that I still keep in touch with that, I'm 10 years since I started college now. We all played 4 years together. So, that was a big incentive to stay, even if the transfer portal was what it was now. So, losing those relationships of having people that you played with, you were in the trenches with for 4 years, that kind of goes away too. To your point on K-State and kind of the turnover that we're seeing right now, I'll be curious when we get a larger sample size, because what is this, year 3 of the Jerome Tang era?
Of the wild, oh, I thought you meant of the NIL era. Yes.
But,
it is year 3 of the Jerome Tang era.
Yeah, and obviously year 1 was absolutely wild. Year 2 was a little bit more of what you would expect with a coach taking over a new program. Missed the NCAA tournament. Kind of made a surge towards the end where they made the bubble. They were really in that next 4/next 4 group. So this season is where things are going to kind of I think we'll start to see more of the trend line. So I'll be curious how it goes in these next couple of years. But certainly at this pace, I mean, last year he had to rebuild the roster, not because of his own doing. This year he's rebuilt a lot of the off roster. So we'll see what happens down the road. But I agree with you. You hope you can see more programs build that continuity that we're missing a lot in college basketball these days.
I want to follow up really quickly on something you kind of glossed over, which is the chemistry aspect.
Yeah.
And we hear this all the time. Oh, this is such a tight-knit group, and it's such a cliche, especially in college sports. How much does that really matter? And if you have 7 transfers, maybe you have 10 out of 12 or 13 players that are brand new with a couple of freshmen, coming in any given season, but you do have all of the early fall workout sessions, the unofficial practices. You have weeks and weeks and weeks of practice before you get to the non-conference and a couple exhibition games. So it's not like, you're all thrown out there. So is this overblown? I mean, are there concerns when you have an entirely new roster, or do you figure that once you got a couple of months together, it's as if you've been playing together for a couple of years?
I tend to think the more time, the better, right? Especially when it comes to like point guards, knowing where their wings are. When you're 5, you're kind of just like expecting the ball to come to you if you work hard enough to get open. But yeah, and it mainly comes to like system dynamics too. I mean, like it takes a while to really understand who you're playing with. I don't think a couple months do that, especially with the NCAA rules of the first couple months on campus, we are just running. Like we are just running and we're lifting. Then you start to get some hours during the week where you're allowed to be on the court for individual sessions or groups of 3 or less. And then when you get to October, you're starting to do 5-on-5. So you really don't have as much time as you would think organized. We'd play pickup off the court, 5-on-5, that kind of thing. But it's a lot. But then, I guess I would say this. Everyone's facing this, right? So it's not like one team going with a completely new roster is facing a bunch of tenured guys that have been together forever. A lot of teams are dealing with this. So I'll be interesting to see how it plays out.
Indeed. And, college basketball, obviously a long time away. But, man, when we get there in October, we're going to have to start learning these new rosters and figure who are all the – and that's at least with Kansas, there's a bunch of new transfers coming in, but you still have the DeJuan Harris, you still have the KJ Adams, you still have the Hunter Dickinson, right?
DeJuan Harris has more eligibility left.
Still there, still hanging out.
Guys, it's funny. It's kind of an inside joke in KU basketball lore that Perry Ellis was there forever. Perry Ellis played for 4 years. Now you guys playing for like 7 and 8 years. It feels like. Well, you look at some of the ages on the roster, and it's like, how are you? You're my age, and you're still playing.
Well, look, he's been telling us. God bless him. I mean, DeJuan Harris said 2 years ago, I'm going to be here 6 years.
And he was right.
He was true to his word.
Yeah, we had time to
but this is, for the record, the final year of players who have the COVID year.
Yes.
So after this season, college sports goes back to only 4 years of actually playing.
Yeah.
Because we have been in just some bizarro world for the last however many years.
Well, and you factor in one more note is there's so many ways to get extra years right now between the COVID year. If you medical redshirt, you get a year there.
Right.
I think more people are taking like prep gap years to go to prep school where you don't lose a year of eligibility. You can defer in high school back a year. So, yeah, back in my day, we didn't have any of this stuff. So it's a wild, wild west.
All right. Since we're talking about back in your day, we decided to do something a little different today. We decided to see if we could conjure up some of our favorite television memories. Won't put any rules on this. This could be live TV, it can be stories, it can be studio, it can be back in your college days doing student television, anything at all. But I'm just curious, now that you're a seasoned veteran of television. I don't know, what if I said to you, what are your coolest TV memories? What comes to mind first?
Yeah, the obvious ones I think that come to mind to me are, I grew up in Kansas City, so my dad was a KU basketball alum. He didn't play basketball. He was a KU alum, and he was a big basketball fan. So I grew up going to Allen Fieldhouse. I think the first game I went to was when I was like 6. And then I also grew up a Chiefs fan. So I'm very lucky just in the terms of my career aligning time-wise well with these teams being very good because, I've been in the industry for 6 years now, and I was on the court for a KU national championship, and I was on the field for a Chiefs Super Bowl, which are like bucket list items. They weren't on my bucket list because I didn't think they were possible. So both of those moments were cool, and I guess I'll like narrow in a little bit more to after the KU 2022 national championship, which, by the way, that was the game that they were down 15 at halftime. And so
North Carolina. Yep.
Yeah, myself and another reporter I was working with from a different station were at KU's locker room at halftime because you could shoot them walking up to the locker room. And they were all, kind of moseying up. Their heads were down. They're down 15 at halftime. And we're at the Superdome in New Orleans. And so I'm writing my script on my phone because it gets so busy on nights of coverage like this. And I'm writing my script, in case they lose because it's really going that direction. By the time I walk from the team locker room at the Superdome to the media room, which like the players would take a golf cart because it's so far. They were up 2, and I was like, what is going on? Like, what did I miss? So that was a wild story. But after the game, we're so busy, we're so hectic, we're trying to do all these things at once, and the sports reporter I'm with at the time, his name is Mitchell Summers, in the off chance he's watching, goes, hey, you should take a moment to FaceTime your parents. And I was like, wait, there's no time, like, what? And he was like, no, really, just it'll take 2 minutes, just do it. And so I FaceTimed my parents on the court, you know, surrounded by confetti and stuff, and that was a really special moment for them to be able to be there with me. And then I carried that tradition. I FaceTimed them on the field after the Super Bowl. So kind of a fun little tradition that came from, you know, stopping and being in the moment for a second. So those are my big 2: KU National Championship 2022, Super Bowl 2024.
That is super cool. I love that touch about FaceTiming the parents. I think that's great, especially with your dad being the diehard fan and that whole thing. That's super awesome. Well, I've been doing this a little more than 6 years.
Yeah, sample size is a little bit bigger.
So the sample size is a little bigger. And, you know, it's funny because the memories are for different reasons. You know, I'll never forget, as I'm sure you won't, my first TV live shot.
Yeah.
I was in Panama City, Florida, and it was a hurricane. And so my first ever live shot was, you know, I was that guy outside with, you know, and keeping in mind I'm from Southern California, so I had never experienced a hurricane or anything like it. So to be, you know, out there, microphone in hand, poncho and the whole works, and trying to make heads or tails of what the heck was going on when I had no idea what was going on, and being live for the first time ever. Which
is scarier. Now it's like second nature, but it's scary when you like first start
Very first
doing
time.
It. Yeah.
And this was a station that was such a, they did 5-minute news cut-ins. They didn't even have full newscasts. So we were not a well-oiled news machine where, you know, everybody in the building was prepared for what was going on. And so this, I mean, literally, there were probably antennas on top of, like, I can only imagine the technology that even got this thing, because this station didn't even do live shots as a general rule. They didn't have a live truck. They had to literally jerry-rig some special system. I have no idea what the technology was, just to do this. So nobody at the station did this regularly, let alone the kid right out of college who had never done one before. So, you know, that was fun and kind of an out-of-body experience. Couldn't tell you one thing that I said. I'm sure it was less than coherent, but it's one of those things you'll never forget. As far as favorite sports live shots and memories, I guess it's pretty obvious. You know, the big events are the ones you remember. Certainly, you know, being on the field in Vegas, what was it, 5 months ago, however many, 4 months ago, however long it's been since February, you know, that was cool. The first one last year was cool. I think for me, I was in the Bay Area prior to coming to Kansas City, and I've had a lot of really good luck with regard to sports teams in my market winning championships.
It takes a lot of luck to be in that market at the right time.
So I got to San Francisco in late 2008, and the Giants won World Series in 2010, 2012, and 2014. And so I was at every World Series game, home and road. But I think for me, the TV moment was the first home game, and they didn't have home field advantage against the Rangers in that first World Series in 2010. So they started on the road, and then they came back, and Game 3, pregame and postgame in Willie Mays Plaza outside the Giants Stadium, there were thousands. And this plaza is not big enough for thousands comfortably, but there were thousands of people after the game. The Giants won the game, intoxicated, mesmerized, just on cloud 9 because the Giants had just gone up, I think it was either 3-0 or 2-1 in the series. And, I mean, we were being pelted with everything from bras to batteries from this crowd. But it was just this surreal experience of trying to do television in that environment. You can't hear anything. You can't hear what the producers are telling you. You can't barely hear, like you sitting next to me. I could barely hear what you were saying to me in my ear. You had to have the double earpieces because it was so loud. One earpiece wasn't going to do it. You had to block it out with both. But just executing live television in that environment and the energy of that is something that has stayed with me ever since, through all the World Series and all the Super Bowls and the NBA championships I covered, and with the Warriors and the Stanley Cup Finals with the Sharks and all that stuff. So that was certainly certainly one of them. And I think, the other broadcast memory for me is radio, not television, but broadcasting my first Rose Bowl when I was doing Stanford football, because I have such respect for the Rose Bowl as an entity, as a building, the actual stadium. Growing up in Los Angeles, it's iconic. You're talking about a century of, one of the preeminent college sports venues in America of any sport, and to call my team playing in that game in that stadium, it's just like, that was a wow moment. And then I guess the third one for me would be the first time I sat on the ESPN Sports Center set, because again, that's like the quintessential "what am I doing here" moment. And to sit in that place, in that studio where I had watched my TV kind of role models and idols for however many 15, 20 years leading up to that, from the time I was 10, was definitely one I'll never forget. So that's the start of the list. But that's the cool thing about what we do, is there's so many awesome.
Oh, we could do another 2 hours
Right?
on this.
It's just so many.
So buckle in.
So from there we segue to a little fun here at the end of the stream today. Your most embarrassing TV moment.
So
in your 6 years of.
My sample size is smaller than yours. I'm excited to hear yours. I'm sure I've made technically errored worse mistakes than this, just because when you start in TV, it's kind of trial by fire. And I was speaking at a student broadcast convention a couple weeks ago, and I was telling them I've made a billion mistakes in this industry, but I don't often make the same one twice. So it's forgot a battery to shoot, never going to do that again. Right. I forgot a camera to a shoot. I messed up my audio. There are things that you never do twice. But so I'm sure I've made bigger gaffes than this. But the one that comes to mind when I think of most embarrassing moment was, so my first market was in Topeka. I left as sports director, so I did that for 2.5 years. But I started as a news reporter and then moved to news anchor and then sports director. When I was a news reporter, so this had to be in my first 6 months of working in television, and I didn't know TV in college. I was doing a Christmas Eve live shot about a DUI patrol, increase in police on the road to monitor for DUIs. And I said, I will remember this, put this line on my tombstone: if you've had too much to drink, make sure to get a distracted driver to take you home. Which is not what I meant. No. Let's get it on the record now. I meant designated driver. And I remember saying that and being like, oh my goodness. So
did you correct yourself, or did you just let it go and just kind of kept on going?
No, because I didn't know what to do, because I was so green. So yeah, that was probably the worst thing I could have said. Right. So major regrets on that. I hope people gave me some slack. But
that's good. That's good. I've got a couple. And I think you've heard a couple of these, but
I could listen to these forever.
So, one from the least embarrassing, I think, of the examples on top of my head. You're familiar with the Coaches versus Cancer college basketball tournament, right? They do it every year. The coaches wear sneakers and this and that. It's a thing in college hoops, and you see it all over ESPN every year. The very first year of the Coaches versus Cancer, I was still at ESPN, and I was referencing it on the air, and I actually referred to it as the Coaches for Cancer Classic,
no. Yeah.
Which is silly because,
not what it was.
But I didn't, I had no idea I said it. Somebody had to tell me that I said it.
See, that I think that's what happened to me too.
Yeah. So that was unfortunate. Number two, also at ESPN, I was doing an ESPN News, and it was the day that Dale Earnhardt was tragically killed in a race. And I had just gotten there not that long before. I was completely NASCAR illiterate. I did not know NASCAR at all. Again, growing up in California, didn't follow it, had no interest in it, and I knew who Dale Earnhardt was, but the name did not resonate any more than simply the recognition of this man as a NASCAR driver. And at some point during the night, we went over this news story probably 800 times. There was one go-round where I killed Dale Jarrett instead of Dale Earnhardt. I said that Dale Jarrett had died, which obviously was not true. But I, at the time, didn't know the difference between. So it's just one of those things. So clearly that didn't go over well, and that was pretty embarrassing. But my favorite of the three was in smaller market television in Santa Maria, California, and I was doing a story about I believe it was Scottie Pippen during a playoff series. And the story was that Scottie Pippen was going to be unable to play because he had a herniated disc in his back or wherever it was. But I read the story a little too quickly, and I omitted the S in disc. And when you do that, it takes an entirely different meaning.
On that note, I'm going to leave the country after this show.
Yes.
I'm not even joking. I will be off the next couple of days. I'm going off to a wedding in Mexico. Very excited for that.
Not because of my stories.
Yeah. Yeah.
I cannot get far enough away from this.
Plane out of the country.
Anyway, so hopefully you had a little bit of fun. Slight departure from the norm here on KC Sports Tonight. But you know what? We're doing this every day, so you got to mix it up. Hey, have fun in out of the country. I won't give away your personal itinerary.
I think I already said it, but thanks.
Okay. Well, then you can give it away. I won't give it away. But no, we'll see you when if you come back.
Yeah.
And when you come back, we will see you
I'll
back
send you
here.
pictures from the beach.
Send us pictures from the beach. We appreciate it. All right. I'll see you over on the 6 o'clock news. Have a good one, everybody.